Hi, I'm Ranjit and welcome to Designers 10. This is the SD podcast where we talk about art, design, and all things fun. I'm here today with Mehek. She's one of our communication design students. Mehek, you want to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, I'm Mehek. I'm a communication design student. I'm in my second year currently, and I'm just exploring design and art differently and together as a whole.
That is a lovely way for us to bring together today's topic, which is talking about how art and design are similar, different, and what it means to be an artist and designer all wrapped up into one. Last time we talked about what it means to be a designer, what is design to us, especially. We were on with Naharika last time, and she gave us a little bit of insight as to what she thought design was. Today, we're doing it a little bit differently. We're talking about how art and design come together. I'm taking this conversation forward mainly because I am an artist myself. It's something that I practice on an everyday basis, but alongside that, I'm also a designer. I design experiences, I design the way people do things, how we see things, experience spaces, a lot of varied design opportunities alongside being an artist. So I think we'll pick the conversation up from that point is, where do you think art fits into a space that is design based?
Art can fit in anything. I mean, design and art are very closely related. Art as design is more of it solves problems, whereas art is something you consume with your eyes. So art can be in a space as something that could be aesthetically pleasing or for your eyes or to send out a message. But I think the more problem solving part is left to design. So for me, art is just to get it all together.
That's fantastic, because I think something that I do on a personal level is when I'm commissioned to do something, I'm not just seeking to create an artwork for the client, I'm also looking to develop an experience for them that changes each day. So for example, if somebody comes to me and says, I'd like an abstract painting for my living room, I'm not just going to paint any random thing and give it to them, right? I'm going to ask them questions in the same way that a designer does, is to find out information, to find context, to find jump off points, and then start creating artwork that's something that fills a space in, right? Gives it volume, gives it some tangibility in a way, but also lets you explore a little bit more. So I might then choose the colors according to what's present within their
putting
space.
the place together.
Yes, exactly. So I think for me, it's always been that way, that kind of choice, a designer's choice, and then coming in as the artist and saying, okay, now that I have all this information, what can I do with it? How can I explore? How can I create something that's unique and something different?
I think a lot of it comes from observing.
Yeah.
Even as art and design together, you need to observe, you need to keep on observing, because without observing, without being empathetic, you will never really know what the other person wants and you won't connect with them. So
absolutely.
That's why they both come together.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, from your experience so far as a student of design, you've explored art to some extent in your first year, and you're doing it more so now in your second year. You've already started dealing with typography, and type is an important part of art in itself, but it's a core of design. So where do you see the relationship of being a designer but having to work with art to create something like typography?
So like I said before, for me, it's like design is a problem solving part and art is where you bring in the aesthetically pleasing, the eye pleasing part. So for typography, I just go with my gut. Like whatever looks good to me. I have like my certain guidelines that you can't use these many fonts or you can't change the colors like that. And I think art comes in through that because it gives me the eye and the detail to know what looks good and what doesn't. And that's why I use my artistic skills to help me with design.
I think that's a well said piece, because if I think back to the project you did last year with me, when we were creating a zine, right? We did that in the first semester, and then the second semester we explored how to create a catalog, a brochure to give information. But art was a big part of that because your topic was to deal with fashion. Right? The project they created, in fact, was a fantastic one. They developed something quite fun, quite interesting, and a way of bringing sustainability into the whole mix. But the brochure that they created was absolutely fantastic in terms of a color palette. It made it attractive, it made it interesting, it made it something that people might want to read actually. So, do you want to tell us a little bit about the experience of making that whole piece?
So the experience started with coming up with the idea of doing the project. The project was about how you can turn fashion sustainable, since fashion is not really a sustainable option right now. But you know how you should, like, it was turning something unsustainable into something sustainable or trying. So we just made a 3-4 brochure based on that, about about different ways you can do that and what our team is doing. So the experience started with getting the team together, okay, I'll do the colors and the content, someone else will get the pictures and everything. So that's how it started. And then we kind of brainstormed on it and we got together, and it was there was a lot of research work done, okay, which colors will go the best. Okay, so this is meant for the fashion industry, this is meant for being, so green is usually sustainable and red is usually fashion. So we try to mix everything up and come up with a color palette. Once the color palette was done, we worked on the content, we worked on the layout. So it was you have to break yourself down, and each step was done concisely. It was a long process, but it was also a fun process. And once you get the color palette, once you get the content, then it's the photos, it's your layout, where what is going to go. It's who is going to read what. Hierarchy played a very important role, because it's what you want your users to read first, right? So if I want them to read who I am, what I'm doing, or the problem of unsustainable clothing, or what we should do to solve it. So it's based on that, based on you see what they want to see first.
Absolutely.
And that's how you build on that.
Absolutely, that's something that we do in art as well. We focus on developing an all-round experience, creating something that people can sort of change and go through every day with, something different and unique. When we're building a painting, for example, we're also doing it in a way that's very structured and yet completely chaotic at some point. Because if you're not exploring, you're not thinking, you can't just go through the motions. You have to find direction from something, but that also means talking to people, understanding their needs. So that whole realm of where art is and where design is in a creating process is where it overlaps.
Right.
And I think that is the similarity that comes in. On the other hand, when we have difference to talk about, like you mentioned, there is a certain purpose to design and a certain purpose to art. Today, I think that's changing, where we're looking at how to create art by designing it. Right. So if we take an example of, say, Oliver Eliasson, he creates light-based experiences. I had the pleasure of actually seeing one and being a part of one in New York, and it was absolutely fantastic. I mean, a yellow room where you can't see anything but yellow and all the other colors become monochromatic. It's something that you wouldn't really necessarily think of, even if you understand physics. And it's something that he came across by accident as well. And I think that's the art side of things, where it becomes really interesting, it becomes unique, it becomes different, it becomes fun. And I think if design is not fun, then you're not actually doing it actively, you're not actually focusing on what it is you want to create as an experience for people.
User-centric, right?
Absolutely, absolutely.
So if it's not fun, no one's going to use it.
Exactly. And the other part of the difference of it, I think, is that people don't know the difference yet.
Right.
And they just assume that if you paint and you draw, that means that you're an artist. But when you say, no, I'm a designer, they just look at you like, so you do graphic design.
Right.
And they limit it to that. They don't go anywhere beyond that. Or they might say you're a fashion designer, just limit it there.
That happened to a lot of us too, when we were okay, we want to get into a design school before, we actually came to ISDE or we applied anywhere else. It's we want to get into a design school, and all our friends were like, oh, so good at painting and this and that. But design isn't just about painting, right?
Absolutely.
And art isn't just about creating something user-centric. Maybe art can be something really crazy, like art can be about yourself and design can be about yourself too. And you mix it up together to create something that's for the people and for yourself too.
Absolutely, absolutely. Next aspect that I want to maybe touch on is how one can survive in the market as an artist and designer. Now, I can speak from my own experience as to having done this for about 12 years, but what I want to get is also your perspective on what you think you're going to need as skills or going to need to do once you enter the design world, and how you might deal with people's misconceptions of art and design, where you fit into all of that. So maybe I think I can start with my own experience. I'm a self-taught artist, which means that I am always being asked, so what do you do? Right? And then when I tell people that, oh, I also teach design, they're like, but you're not a designer. So how do you teach design? And then I have to have a long-winded conversation with them, which is, okay, so this is what art is, this is what design is, this is where it overlaps, and this is what I do in between both worlds. Where, for example, when I was with the Kalagoda Association doing the Kalagoda Festival, I had to think of all the artwork that was going to be put up for the visual arts section, but I also had to design a schedule for the whole festival by keeping in mind what plays were happening, what music was happening, what films were being shown, what workshops were happening, and also consider where everything was happening all at once, which meant that I had to sit down, figure everything out, and also plan what that schedule was going to be like. It's crazy, right? So once you have to explain all of that again and again and again, that's when people finally get around to the idea of, oh, art and design can coexist, and you can be both and not just one.
You use artwork for design and you use design thinking for creating art.
Absolutely, absolutely. So given that that was one of my experiences, what do you think you're going to need going forward to be able to survive in a world where people think that art and design are the same thing?
Okay, leaving your skills aside, what you really need is good communication skills. I think that's a must. I mean, you might be really talented, but if you don't know how to put yourself out there, no one's gonna come to you. It's a really competitive world.
Right.
So you need to talk to people. You need to tell them who you are, what you're doing. You need to, you need to bring your work to them.
Right.
And not just like anything, like just art and design, everything that you're doing, you need to put yourself out there. People need to know what you're doing. So I think that's really important. As for design and art, I mean, like social media, the life out of it. Like every single artwork, you should keep on uploading it. And also stuff that's you don't like so much and you're not that proud of, upload it still, because people can see your process, and your process is something that matters a lot as a designer and as an artist. It's like that's how you grow. That's how they see you grow. So yeah, I think communication skills, putting yourself out there, so like using social media for it, that's something you should know as an
Absolutely.
artist.
I mean, I agree. Like, given that I started my career in art in 2007, social media was still not such a big thing. We only had Facebook going crazy at that point of time. But over time, we came across Instagram, we had Snapchat, we've had YouTube, we've had Twitter. Now, I've had the distinct pleasure of actually taking on an experiment and saying, let me see if I can bring auctions to social media.
Right.
So I did that with Twitter, where I auctioned pieces of my work, small pieces, maybe around 8 by 10 inches or something small, affordable, easy to put up, that people would be willing to participate with and to buy. Now, the first season, because it was such a new, novel thing, there was a lot of participation. It was quite crazy, in fact. There was one small painting which I opened the bids at around 400 or 600 rupees, if I remember correctly. And then slowly throughout the day, I had kept a certain time limit and I kept retweeting it and kept posting about it. Out of the blue, people just started bidding on this painting more and more and more and more and more, to the point where suddenly I was selling the piece for the final bid for 4,000 rupees.
Wow.
Which was insane. I mean, I never thought it would go
From
anywhere.
400 to 4,000.
Yeah, it's crazy. It's absolutely crazy. But as soon as I did that, I realized, okay, there is some power here. And it also leaves an impact. So as a designer, I'm thinking, okay, if this works, it means it opens a door for other people to do different things with it, to play with it, to create something. And I'm glad I thought that way, because one of the outcomes was there's a small NGO called Omega, right? They teach young children how to stitch and how to do embroidery and create things so that at some point they'll be able to start making a living for themselves. And what the NGO tries to do is it tries to promote these products and these small things like pillowcases and book covers and scarves and all these kinds of things. But they weren't being able to put their work out enough to get the kind of funding they needed to help these kids. Essentially, we came across an opportunity that as an artist, you realize that you're doing stuff for the community, not just your own artist community, but people at large, which is something that artists like to focus on. But from the point of view of design, it's something we constantly focus on.
Giving back to our community and every community, giving back to culture is something we focus on a lot. And I think that's the best part of being an artist and a designer.
Absolutely.
It's like you're giving back to something that brought you up there. And we are liberals, right? So we think with a very liberal mindset. We can just come up, wear a jhola, wear a kurta and go anywhere. That's us. So for us, seeing the society, seeing our culture, seeing our community get better is something that is really close to our heart, and that's what makes us happy. Overall, that's what we look for. That's like in Maslow's 5 levels in his pyramid, it's like giving back to the community is like on the highest point. So yeah, I mean that's the ultimate pleasure you get from being an artist and a designer.
I think it's a fantastic point you make, because we are always aiming to create, but we're not going to create without purpose. So even if I'm creating for myself as a solo artist, I'm also thinking about what kind of experience my viewers are going to have. I want to create something that I believe in and has meaning for me, but it's not going to be the same for anyone else. And I think if we go in with that kind of an open mindset and say, I'd like to give this experience to people, but if they have their own experience, that's just as valid. It's just as important for me to learn from.
And even with art, it's like you create art to feel, right? You create art to make people feel. You have so much emotion behind it. That's what art is, like putting your emotion out there. So that's where your point comes in of for people to understand, for people to have their own story with your story and create new stories. That's how we take this entire journey ahead. That's how the community moves ahead.
Well, it's been a fun conversation so far. I know we have a lot more to talk about, but we will bring back Designers Den very, very soon. We have a lot more coming your way. As you can tell, we are shooting this on campus in the middle of a working day, which means there's going to be a lot of sounds all around us. And that's all the students running around trying to find their own voices as artists and designers. It's been a pleasure, Mehek. Thank you so much for joining me. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for listening. And we will see you very, very soon. This has been Designers Den. I'm Ranjit. Please come drop by at SD. We can show you our stuff. You can give us your ideas. Let's make the world a better place.